After a lackluster start to the season, Lewis Hamilton has showed his class by winning the previous 2 rounds of the season. Can anybody challenge the defending champion at his home race, though? Welcome back to the Formula One Grid Talk podcast. Today we'll be previewing this weekend's British Grand Prix and going over the new circuits that are going to join the F1 2020 calendar. We are powered by the F1 Chronicle. Visit f1chronicle.com for news, reviews and opinions on all things F1. Hosting today will be me, George Howson. And joining me today are sports journalist Dev Tyagi.
Hey, hi.
Former head of marketing at Force India Kunal Shah.
Hi.
And master of engineering, it's Jack Watson.
Hello.
So, lads, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for everybody who's joining us on Facebook Live as well. Leave your comments down below, and we will try and answer whatever you guys are thinking about. But, so Lewis Hamilton, it's fair to say he's in very good form. He's won the last 2 rounds, as I just mentioned. And, Jack, he is absolutely mega around Silverstone. He's won 6 times there, more than anybody else, and that Mercedes car is looking, frankly, unbeatable.
Absolutely. We've seen that performance in high-speed circuits in Austria, and Silverstone is, I suspect, anyway, is going to be like just more of that, really. So especially through the old part of the circuit, Copse, Maggots, Beckett, it's that car is going to be planted, and I really can't see him being challenged all that much. Certainly in this first race, maybe the second race when they've all got a bit of data, Bottas might have a bit more of a chance, but I mean, not a betting man, but I wouldn't bet on anyone but Hamilton.
Yeah, he is the easy choice and probably the smart choice too. Like Jack mentioned there, we do have 2 rounds at Silverstone, just like we had at Austria to start the season. We've got the British Grand Prix, then the 70th anniversary Formula One GP or whatever it's officially called. But yeah, I mean, just the grip of that Mercedes, Dev. I mean, we saw it in the qualifying laps from Hamilton and Bottas. I mean, it's going to take a very special car, a very special performance to beat them, really.
Absolutely. I think Hamilton would be very keen to begin where left it last year. And let's not forget, he put on the fastest lap on the very final lap of the race. I think the car is going to be just as competitive as it was last year. Just that Hamilton would be more hungry than ever to perhaps claim his 7th victory down at Silverstone. Also, the kind of form that he has had at this track, 2014, 15, 16, 17, he won on 4 consecutive occasions. 2018 was a bit of a dampener. Bottas found a way to get better of him. But it was back to usual business in 2019 and now 2020. There are 2 chances. So my own personal take is he might just win both of them. But given the fact that Valtteri has the same car, probably it could be 51-49. He could just also have just the same edge that Lewis has. But let's see, all to play for.
Yeah, all to play for indeed. And it's early days, Kunal, but you have to feel that Bottas really has to win at least one of these races to stop Hamilton romping to another title.
Absolutely. I would say he needs to win both of these races, to beat Lewis on a circuit where Lewis has, like Dave said, been a master, over the last several years would be a good way to sort of try and strike back, at least on the mental aspect of things. Because we've seen, apart from qualifying, for the Styrian Grand Prix, which was under wet conditions and Bottas had blazing brake issues, the 2 of them have been fairly neck to neck in qualifying. And, Bottas has identified that he needs to be closer to Lewis in qualifying, or of course he means beat Lewis in qualifying if he wants to hold an edge for the race. And clearly he is seemingly trying too hard, given the mistake he made at the start, for the last race in Hungary, where he dropped his revs and then he sort of almost jumped the start and the like. So it's great to see him make the effort, which is which in itself is a spectacle. And it would be a blockbuster if he ends up beating Lewis, at home over the next 2 races.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, Bottas, I think he was up there with Massa when they were in the Williams and they were leading early 2015, I want to say. So he's not bad around this track. And even Hungary, where Hamilton, he's won there 8 times now. Been qualifying, there was only a 10th or so in it. So Bottas has definitely got a chance. But you feel on previous form and current form that Hamilton is the strong favourite going into this one. But yeah, now, Jack, the team that I expected to challenge Mercedes at least a little bit this season was Red Bull. And this is a track where you'd normally expect them to do quite well. But around Hungary, their car was looking very unbalanced. And unless they sort that issue out, Verstappen did get 2nd place. But, it's looking unlikely they'll be able to do that again if the car's looking as unbalanced as in Hungary.
It sort of seems to be quite well documented now that there is a very prominent drivability and stability issue with that car. it's being shown up quite a bit by Albon not quite being on the pace you'd expect. I reckon I'm trying to think, mate. It might be slightly better for them for the Silverstone compared to Hungary, given that there is a little bit less on overall agility required at Silverstone, and maybe their high-speed stability might be more in their favour. Hungary has differed quite a bit from Austria, and we will, especially given this week's break, we would expect upgrades. So, especially with a lot of Hungarian grades being specific to that track, given the focus on cornering and the tight temperatures. So, I think there's probably a chance that they will be closer, but I suspect it will be more focused against the racing points than Mercedes themselves.
Yeah, it might well be that. I mean, the gap that Mercedes have to the field, it's probably about half a second at least, even around a track like Silverstone. But you never know. Max Verstappen pulled out a hell of a performance in Hungary and got second place. He got third the week before that in Styria too. So, he's definitely in good form, but there's only so much even he can do with the car. Now, going into this race, Dave, he's third in the Constructors' Championship. I'm always having to do a double take of this, but still, McLaren, I mean, they've been genuinely in fantastic form this season. Although Hungary did show the car up a bit, but they did very well in Austria, and it's another high-speed circuit in Britain. So do you think we could see Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz challenging the Red Bulls maybe even?
I think definitely. For this particular Grand Prix, I would say that both the McLarens are in good contention to attack Verstappen at least. And no matter what happens on the race day, we know that, getting your nose ahead on the grid on qualifying is most important. And where the qualifying pace is concerned, then McLaren have really outshone their critics or anyone who would have doubted them this year. So I think they have everything going for them. And Lando Norris would be bolstered because of the fact that it's the first time he's really running in contention for a very strong finish in the driver standings. I mean, he's right now already fifth, I believe. Verstappen is third, and I think he's fourth or fifth. So I think it's really great for both McLarens, and also great opportunity for Sainz to depart nicely from what would be his last race for McLaren for McLaren at the British Grand Prix, and he has got two opportunities to do that. So might as well put in his 100% in both. So
yeah, Lando Norris in incredible form in the first two races, third and fifth, and that ended up, and he's still in fourth place despite a non-score in the last race. McLaren will be hoping for better, but they can't complain too much of how the season's gone so far. And I think the car would probably suit this track. But yeah, moving on to potentially one of the more controversial teams this season, it's fair to say, Racing Point. They're in a very good battle. I mean, before this season started, Kunal, we were thinking, maybe they could challenge for best of the rest. But the way they're going, they could get second overall. And Lance Stroll, fair play to him. He did brilliantly in Hungary.
Absolutely. I think he surprised us all, in Hungary and also in the wet qualifying at the Styrian Grand Prix. And, like he's been saying that qualifying has been an area he's identified he needs to improve in, and he's sort of made that step forward this season. So it's been a pleasure to watch him, at least out qualify and outpace Sergio Perez, in the last race, which in itself is a good thing for his statistics and his credentials, given how, he's the butt of all jokes, given the lineage he comes with. But all in all, it's a pleasure to watch the pink Mercedes cars do what they're doing. Like you said, yes, it's controversial. It's the team I used to work for, when I was working in the sport. Still a lot of people there from my days back at Force India. But, it just goes to show that, there is a different model that Formula One can also use to sort of raise the competitive quotient of the grid, because that's eventually what we all want, right? We want all teams to be competing for all positions rather than the, unofficial split between Formula One and Formula 1.5. And, this year, Formula 1.5 is literally being fought by 9 teams, while Mercedes is sort of competing in the Formula 1 class of the field. And, we've seen how P2 and lower has always been great for us to, watch out for in terms of the battles and the strategies that play out. So it'll be interesting to see, if Racing Point is able to sort of get themselves to the top of the Formula 1.5 battles through the entire course of the season.
It's definitely possible. It's like you say, it is very tight in that midfield, and people have been saying that it's not right, it's not ethical, and all this and that. But they've done something. They've done the best thing they can, and so far it's been legal, despite Renault's best efforts. They keep protesting that. They're going to protest after every race. It's just it's like It's like when you're trying to go after a girl and she ghosts you, and you're just trying to send more and more messages just to try and get her back, but it's not working. The FIA is not listening, I don't think. It's good. It's just a joke, really. Speaking of jokes, Ferrari. Now they have
Ouch. Oh my!
Hey, look. People know my tendencies towards Ferrari. They have been horrific this season, to be fair. But fair play to big improvements last time out in Hungary, Jack. You know, they've got themselves up there with the McLarens and the Racing Points. Bonkers strategy for Leclerc. I mean, nothing new there, I guess. But, you know, if things come together and if their upgrades do work this weekend, they've got a genuine chance of challenging at the top of that midfield battle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what little momentum they have it after Hungary. The one question mark that exists is that will the performance that the upgrades gave at Hungary, will that carry over to Silverstone? Admittedly, if you're a cynic, you should probably say, I mean, no. But I reckon that they'll run with this. They know where there's the big issues in that car. They are quite aware of what the areas that they fundamentally will not be able to fix, and that car will be flawed for a very long time. But they know the limited areas where they can and need to develop. And I reckon that they will at least be around the McLarens. I don't think it will be as clean cut as it was in Austria. And as long as they can stay away from each other, I reckon it'll be enough to give them. I mean, look, it's not where Ferrari are meant to be, but if we can get a pair of solid points finishes, it's what they are going to be begging for right now, and get any momentum they can for the top of the rounds.
Yeah, I think that's what they'll be hoping for. Just solid points finishes, being there on merit. I mean, yeah, they did get a podium in Austria, but that was largely because there were so many retirements and a ridiculous job by Charles Leclerc. Fair play to him. So I was in second place, actually, my bad. But yeah, no, it's the problem with Ferrari, though, Dev, I think, is that, yes, they've not got great aerodynamics compared to the top runners, but the engine is down on last year, and that is going to be shown up at Silverstone, one of the fastest tracks on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, you straight away understand that there seems to be a problem when you have guys in seemingly far slower cars like Gasly, going so flat out. And I think Ferrari would definitely be under immense pressure but I think it's come to a point where they are no longer effectively, competing for the constructors' honors. So every race, I would say, from a fan perspective, and I'm a huge Ferrari fan, is fundamentally down to damage control. This is a track where Leclerc last year got third, but Verstappen made a complete showdown out of it. You know, it was not very easy. The kind of battle we saw between Leclerc and Verstappen at Silverstone was pretty much reminiscent of what the duo was doing at Austria. So because they were, at the front of the grid, the battle was between Hamilton and Bottas. Further down the midfield, it was between Verstappen and Leclerc. So Leclerc would hope that if not third, then at least, fourth, fifth, sixth. So I think anything between P4 or P7, should that be something that Ferrari can do? I mean, I think they would consider themselves fortunate, because they are clearly down on horsepower. And let's understand, this is a track where it's not just about going flat out on the straights, it's about corner speed as well. And, the other cars like Red Bull, I think, are in a significantly better position than the prancing horses.
Yeah, definitely. And that Honda engine in the back of the Red Bull is no slouch either. I mean, it could well be the second fastest engine on the grid this season. But yeah, moving on. So firmly mid-table is Renault so far. They're sixth in the Constructors' Championship. And I've got to feel like they'll be a bit disappointed, really. I mean, there is pace in that car, but they can't really get both cars into the points and kind of catch up to Ferrari, Racing Point, McLaren. But this weekend could be a big weekend for you. You never know. Daniel Ricciardo, very quick round Silverstone.
Yes, he's really quick around Silverstone, and Renault have sort of been there but not been there, so to say. And I believe that their result is sort of in the whole competitive midfield, it's that one mistake which sort of is just costing them a decent result. For example, when Ricciardo tried the reverse strategy and, they didn't ask Ocon to let him go past, I think this was the second race in Austria and the likes. So they would have probably understood that it's not that they have a bad package altogether. It's just that it's a very, competitive midfield out there. And, Daniel Ricciardo, of course, has a point to prove each time he gets into that Renault. Although he's definitely glad that he's not going to be driving that car, next season. But even somebody like an Esteban Ocon, because we've now suddenly seen the narrative shift towards, okay, how many seasons is George Russell going to keep doing at Williams? What is the next plan of action Mercedes would have for him? And, one assumes that it would be going from a Williams to a Mercedes seat for George Russell. That's what, Mercedes would have in mind. And suddenly in this whole narrative, Esteban would be wondering, but hey, what about me? I've, sort of shown that I've been competitive against Checo Perez. He's been pretty good in qualifying this year, except for the last race, that we had in Hungary. But overall, I think it's two drivers who are wanting to or are needing to deliver more than the package can deliver for Renault, and that sort of bears well for the team who are sort of still struggling to keep up pace, in this hybrid turbo era.
They're there in the midfield, but it's just they don't seem to really get consistent points. It's been 8th places for one of the drivers every race so far. They've got a big gap to close, but you never know. They could keep their noses clear and get some solid points this weekend. Now, another team that's just kind of been motoring on, getting the odd points finish every now and again, it's AlphaTauri, Jack. I mean, you never know. They could get a few points this week, and Kvyat and Gasly doing okay this season, but they need to sort out their engine issues. I mean, Gasly having a big engine failure in Hungary last week.
Yeah, that will be concerning for them. I'm pretty sure they're still running as that the role of like a Honda's test bed, essentially. Like how Honda's already said that for previous seasons that they would take the hit in terms of engine penalties if it meant fast tracking development work to be proven for the Red Bull factory team. So it's something I obviously can't afford to have that happen too many times. And with the homologation coming in, you would think that development is going to now be quite stunted. So if they can sort of ease up and get on top of it and, like you say, just get the consistent results in, they are just sort of motoring around doing their own thing. That if they can keep it up and maybe like extract a little bit more power out of it reliably, that will certainly start bothering Haas, Williams and Renault significantly.
Yeah, and by all accounts, they're faster than the Williams and the Haas, really. Yeah, but we're getting down to the bottom 3 teams. I mean, it's not too great for these guys right now. It does. There is a midfield battle there. They can challenge, but it's seeming like they are the backmarkers this season. Williams, Haas, and Alfa Romeo. I mean, Dev, I love Kimi Räikkönen. I know Luke, you love Kimi Räikkönen as well. But despite his absolute best effort, the Finn is one of only 4 drivers this season who hasn't scored any points. I mean, that Alfa Romeo, it's not looking like a good car. I mean, both of them qualified on the back row in Hungary.
Yeah, I mean, if Kimi were to be here, he would just simply say, I mean, I was having this shit so far. Who knows? That's something which could happen in Silverstone too. But I feel for him. He did much better in the second round at Austria, where he finished 11th. No, I think it was in the first one. There was one in which he lost his front.
The second one he finished 11th.
Yeah, second one. So I think when you were speaking of backmarkers, I think Williams have outsmarted Alpha how not to be the backmarkers this season, and it's really Kimi. And on the one hand, it's good that he ends up somehow out speeding his teammate, but then it's Antonio who scored 2 points, and Raikkonen is yet to open his account. So I think that sucks. But there's nothing much he can do. Although he would remember well that last year he finished 8th at Silverstone. Although this time the chances could be anywhere between 10 to 15. First of all, they have to somehow find a way not to get out-qualified, in Q3. They have to make it to Q3. But can that happen? I don't know. It'll
be very tough, and they're not helped by that Ferrari power unit in the back of the car either. It's looking difficult for Alfa Romeo, and we've been talking about the future of the team. And I honestly thought this. I love Kimi Räikkönen, but he's getting on a bit. I generally thought that Giovinazzi would be outperforming this year, but it's the other way around. Räikkönen is outperforming Giovinazzi in this car, so it's kind of like, where do they go from next year? Is Kimi Räikkönen want to stick around? Probably not. Who's coming up? Schumacher and Schwartzman. Are they going to get better performances than Kimi Räikkönen this season? Maybe, possibly. Who knows? But there's a lot of uncertainties around that team at the moment. But yeah, we'll move on to Haas next, and they managed to get the first point of the season out in Hungary, Kunal. But I don't know about you, but I really do feel sorry for Kevin Magnussen. The details of why he got that penalty were just ridiculous. Like his team coming on the radio saying that he should maybe switch tyres to dry tyres, even though he was on the full wets. I think it's very harsh, I'll be honest.
It is actually very harsh, the penalty, but I'm sure he's just happy to have scored a point, as are Haas. And, frankly, there are two things that you just mentioned here. First is that Haas being on full wets was admitted by the team that they made a mistake in itself. So it was a miraculous mistake that they could recover from by calling their drivers into the pits. And, if we go back and sort of review the radio message that Kevin Magnussen and his pit wall exchanged, he actually confirmed twice. So we are pitting for dries, right, guys? We were pitting for dries. And that's when you realize that he just wanted to be absolutely sure that there isn't one more mistake that they end up making by taking on a different tire compound than what the driver would have predicted. But I think it's great that he's had points. I personally love the character. He's great to interact with, very Nordic, which is what I also love in his personality. And he's also got the talent. He's just unfortunately now stuck with a team that's stalled in their progress in Formula One, and they've made no bones about the fact that in 2020 they're not going to really upgrade the car till they know what the budget is, what the earning is, and so on, which is a very typical individual-owned team midfield team problem. That everyone's working towards a balance sheet, and so long as the balance sheet allows you to sort of bring upgrades, you'll work on them, and if not, then you let them go. And then of course, like Alfa Romeo, they've been hindered by the issues with the Ferrari power unit as well. So it's like two things that you need to go quicker are definitely not working in your favor. But going back to what you said about the penalty, I think maybe the FIA needs to step in and see if such sort of a penalty can, or the rule book needs to be rewritten, because the penalty was introduced for a very different reason at that point, which was to not coach the drivers on their formation lap and not basically tell them what's to be done. And when people were saying that there's too much of engineering that's going on in the car, with regards to the driver. And everyone brought up that whole topic of Marcus Winkelhock and how he pulled off this strategy and so on. And if we want to see such strategies that we will remember 10 years, hence, we need to sort of have some sort of a leeway in the current rule book saying, yes, you could discuss tire strategy in mixed weather conditions, for example, being an exempt in the rule book. But all in all, I enjoyed their race in Hungary. It was great to see them run third and fourth, and unfortunate that Romain Grosjean couldn't score points. But that's what typically happens with a midfield team that just suddenly, gets onto a magic, pit tire strategy. It doesn't have to work out for both drivers.
Yeah, it was brilliant seeing him running up there, third and fourth, and Magnussen ended up getting the point. Grosjean just couldn't hold on. It didn't. I mean, people were saying, "Oh, he's done terrible that race," but he did do an important job. He did hold up the drivers behind for as long as possible, and probably destroyed his tyres in the process. So fair play to him. Did a decent job there, and has get the first point of the season, which could prove pivotal at the end of that battle at the bottom of the table. Now, last team, and it pains me to say the last team again, still Williams, Jack, but it was good qualifying in Hungary. But when everything shook out in the end, they're still the slowest car probably on the grid, despite George Russell's best efforts.
Yeah, it's that race pace that's really worrying for them. I mean, I don't know where George is pulling these laps from, but geez, like it's
all
amazing.
In virtual GPs he's been doing, like practice.
But it's brilliant to see, like all of a sudden, like Russell just popping up to 12th or something. If they can, I wonder if Silverstone is a chance where they could hold on with it, with the limited long braking zones. If they can maintain stability, because the car doesn't seem to be as unstable as it used to be. It's just a general lack of pace. So it could be their best chance to hold on, because they'll be working the tyres a bit less aggressively than they were in Hungary. But we'll have to wait and see. One thing that may well play into their hand as well is the weather. It's not very nice here in the UK at the minute. So,
nothing new there.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, you never know. A bit of rain coming in. It is a bit late for the British Grand Prix. So that could well spice something up in either of the races.
It could well do, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the weather forecast now, and it is predicted to be dry, actually. But you never know. It's possible. You never know. The British weather can spring up a few surprises, but currently it's meant to be dry over that weekend. I'm not sure about next weekend. Don't go that far. But yeah, that's all the teams previewed. Now, obviously, there was some big news in terms of It's been rumoured quite a bit, but 3 new tracks, or old tracks depending on how you look at it, on the calendar for next year. First of all, we've got Imola. Now that's going to be the 13th round, current last round of the championship, but there will be some more, I'm sure, after that. But yeah, first time since 2006, Dev, that we're going to Imola. I mean, I love this meme that I found. The last time F1 raced at Imola, Max was 8, Lando was 6, and Kimi Räikkönen was 5th. It's been that long since it's been there. First time since 2006. I mean, how do you feel about a third Italian race this season?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's great from a Mercedes perspective that they get to win at all Italian events. Not so great for Ferrari though. But
more pressure.
More pressure, absolutely. Another chance for Lewis to prove his mettle, which we are all so familiar with by now. But Imola coming back is, personally, I mean, as a Formula One fan, it's great. To me, it would always be the track where we saw the demise of Ayrton. That's the real downer for me. But otherwise, would be exciting to see what these new drivers can do in their first ever attempt at Imola. I'd be excited to see, for example, what Lando Norris can do. Can Russell finally, break the jinx for Williams and drive a commanding lap and do something special, gather at least a point? But yeah, it's amazing to have Imola back in that sense for these young drivers. Great to see what Verstappen. Can we see a Verstappen versus Leclerc, similar to what we saw at Silverstone and Austria last year, this year? So yeah, many things out there to see this year.
Definitely, yeah, and it's a very high-speed circuit as well. And since we went there last, they've also took out the final chicane, so it's a straight run for a very long way, all the way to now. It's one where it's passed away. Yep, Tamburello, that's the one. Tamburello chicane. It's rapid. Even the chicanes are fast. Like genuinely, I would implore everybody to watch an onboard, like a simulation from a set of cars or something like that, about these new tracks, because they're a lot different to what they were back in the day. Just because because the cars have evolved so much, they're so rapid. Another track that's coming back, Kunal, is the Nurburgring, and it's the first time since 2013. There have been some people criticising this, though. Some people saying that it's very likely to be cold and wet during this weekend, but I guess that makes it more exciting for us.
Absolutely. I was just reading the weather report, just an hour before we got onto record. And of course, not the report for what they're predicting now for what could be in November, but what the average mean is. And, a daily mean of 9 degrees and a low of 5 degrees is what they're predicting, for the month of
Get the snow
November.
tires out, bloody hell.
And yeah, I think it would be great to see how, teams and drivers cope, because their most crucial challenge is going to be the tires and, what Pirelli are able to sort of deliver. But all in all, it's great to have a Grand Prix back in Germany, a country with such a magnificent history in the world of motorsport. And then, of course, the reigning champions, Mercedes, being German as well. So to me, it's such a interesting scenario we are in, because, the COVID-19 pandemic almost gave us no calendar, a couple of months ago. And now it's thrown up the best calendar that any Formula One fan could have asked for. So it's a good turnaround of fortunes for all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. And fortunately, this means that it's more likely we will not get a Hockenheim Grand Prix this year. They've pretty much ruled that out.
Yeah.
But we do get to see Nürburgring again, which is good. So good to have a race in Germany, even though it's titled as the Eiffel Grand Prix, which I don't really get, but whatever. Their choice, I suppose. Now, Jack, the moment you've been waiting for, the final track of the 3 that's been announced, is Portimao in Portugal. And I heard you're quite a fan of this one.
I am. I am quite a fan of Portimao. So much elevation change. It's first Portuguese Grand Prix since 1996, and I'm so happy that they went here and not to Estoril. To be honest, I don't think Estoril is even Grade 1 listed. But anyway, that's by the way. I reckon it's quite similar to Mugello in a way. At the top section, seeing a modern F1 car go through those fast sweepers into off camber, on crest braking zones, that will be something quite special to see. Anyone familiar with the track, it seems like people are thinking that they won't use the fast right-hand kink at the start of the lap. They'll probably use the chicane in place of the fast run into turns 1, 2, and 3, just for the minimum radius. But I'm so excited to see them pushing themselves. I do hope, and my only concern right now is dirty air. As I was saying before we start recorded, some of the top sections do seem like they could draw in a bit of dirty air. But we'll have to wait and see. It seems to minimise as best as it ever has been since it's been the talk of the town. So with any luck, we should see some close battles.
Hopefully, at the end of the day, it's somewhere different, somewhere new, somewhere that potentially in the future maybe we could have races. Yeah, these are more one-off venues, but you never know; they could come back in the future, especially Portugal, Portimao. I mean, people have been talking about that for a while now. But yeah, so in response, well, I think these were more in response to the races being cancelled, but all the Americas races have been cancelled. There'll be no Canadian Grand Prix, no Brazilian Grand Prix, no USGP, and no Mexican Grand Prix. And unfortunately, I believe that means that we have seen the last race at Interlagos for the foreseeable future, because they're meant to move into Rio for next year, if building goes planned. I mean, you never know. It could be delayed by a year or so because of coronavirus. Hope not, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, so back to the British Grand Prix, guys. I'm just going to go with our top 3 predictions for this race. I'm going to go with the not-so-bold prediction of Hamilton, Bottas, and then Max Verstappen in 3rd place. Jack, who are you saying?
Hamilton and Bottas, I think it's hard to argue. And I'm actually going to say Stroll.
Ooh, Lance. He's been in good form, to be fair. He's been qualifying better.
I'm amazed with how his qualifying has been going. And if he can hang on, and that Racing Point should be capable of doing it, I reckon he's got a real shout.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the car is very good. And obviously, Mercedes really suits that track now. Last year's Mercedes should really suit it too. So, Dev, what's your top 3 prediction?
I think for qualifying, I believe Verstappen could sandwich the two, would be sandwiched by the two Mercedes, with obviously Hamilton going topping the qualifying. And I think on race day, it could be Mercedes 1-2, followed by either Norris. I hope a last-minute miracle happens this time too. Otherwise, we could have a pretty straightforward race. But yeah, I think at the end of the race, it would be Mercedes 1-2, with either Verstappen or Norris on 3rd.
Fair enough. Kunal, what's your top 3?
I think it's going to be the 2 black arrows on top, Bottas followed by Hamilton for the first round at least. And then I'm going to pick a Sergio Perez for the podium. You know, he's not had the best of the last couple of races, and, you know, Mexican fans are very early to jump the trigger and say, hey, there's a conspiracy, you know, they're doing this to make Stroll look faster and the like, you know, which I'm sure is complete nonsense. But I'd love to see Checo back on the podium. You know, there's a lot of question around his future, unfortunately, you know, given how the whole driver market situation is developed. But that would be my pick.
Yeah, I would feel so bad for Checo if he ended up losing his seat for next year. But that is the rumour at the moment, Vettel to replace him at what will become Aston Martin for next year. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Bold prediction time for me. I've said it at 2 of the first 3 races. But I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go with George Russell for the points in his home race. Bordering on stupid prediction by me there. But let's see. You never know. He who dares wins. Jack, what's your bold prediction?
Oh, you stole my thunder there. I was going to say that. Let's see.
Can you tell that we're the 2 Brits in this? Like,
I say it's slim odds, but double points for score for Renault.
Yeah, first time this season they managed that. It's definitely possible. Dev, what's your bold prediction?
That both the Ferraris do not crash in both the races.
I thought I was being bold. Jesus. Kunal.
I would say that Albon will finish ahead of Max Verstappen in at least one race.
Ooh.
That would be excellent should that happen, really.
I think he needs it, to be fair. I mean, I don't think he deserves to have any pressure on him, really, but I get the feeling that Helmut Marko is laying into him already, I'll be honest. Because you know what that team's like. They're brutal when it comes to their drivers. Yeah, we'll see. So those are our bold predictions. That is a preview for the British Grand Prix. We'll be back on Saturday with reaction to qualifying about 5 o'clock, something like that, I imagine. Again, we'll let you know on the F1 Chronicles Facebook page. We have an official store when it comes to merchandise. Just go to the F1 Chronicles website to get custom mugs, T-shirts, and more from there. We're broadcasting this live on Facebook, as I'm sure some of you are joining us right now. So if you want to get the show early, be sure to like the F1 Chronicles Facebook page for that. We're also available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, Pocket Cast. Just search for the F1 Grid Talk and all of those. We've got a back catalogue of over 40 shows, so please do check those out. We've also got race reviews and previews, as I'm sure you already know. We also have some more documentary-style pieces, one where we interview Mario Sola, the head of Pirelli Motorsport, and Tyagi and Ayrton Senna as well. But yeah, that's all we've got, and thank you very much for joining us. Cheers, lads, for joining us as well. We'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.